everybody. We've been off for, it's been a month since we've done one of these because we did the stellar Tablas Creek pickup party on the last Friday, which I think turned out really well, and hopefully some of you that were there are going to be here tonight. So continuing down this road of finding interesting people to talk to, the program has evolved nicely. And today we're going to speak to a young lady from out of our area, up in Washington. She met Darren Delmore, who is our national sales manager, at a Hospice Tyrone event, and they were talking Tablas Creek clones and yada yada. And Darren thought she'd be a great person for me to talk to. So we said, why not? It's an interesting area, interesting region up in Walla Walla that I know just about nothing about. I mean, I've visited briefly, but have not spent any great time there. I enjoyed it. It's great space, great place, and it's certainly on the rise. There's no question about that. So, they grow some Tablas Creek. Brooke Robertson is her name. DELMAS Winery and SJR Vineyards. Family affair, mom, dad, and daughter. In the Rocks appellation or sub-appellation, which I know zero about. So really excited to talk about that. And plus the viticulture in that area of the world is quite different than almost anywhere else that I know of. I mean, just the cold weather, et cetera, et cetera. That being said, there's some stellar wines coming out of there and have been for a long time. And way back, when I first started, Leonetti was famous up in that region. And then, of course, Christian from Cayuse made a name up there. And it's growing. It's getting interesting. So I think it'll be, for those of you who are interested in new regions, I think tonight will be super cool. And I'm excited because I intend to learn as much as I can about not only the Robertsons properties and winemaking, but also the region in general. So I suppose without further ado, let's say hi to Brooke. Here she is.
Hi, everybody.
Hi there. How are you?
Good. How are you, Neil?
Doing good. So, well, here we are. So let's start out with just kind of telling us a little bit about your family and a little bit of history, because I know a little bit from our previous conversation, but I don't know how widely known Delmas is. It's known amongst their own world to an extent, but introduce it to anyone that might be listening.
Perfect. Okay, well, I can do that. We are a micro level producer up here in the Rocks district of Milton Freewater, and that is on the Oregon side of the Walla Walla Valley. It is its own AVA, completely encompassed within Oregon, and that's where we chose to kind of settle ourselves and make and grow our wine.
You're an Oregon producer. You're an Oregon producer, not a Washington producer.
Exactly. Go Beavs. That's
right.
my contribution. Yeah, so we, the Robertson family, kind of got into the wine. We caught the wine bug with my parents, Mary and Steve Robertson, in the early 80s. They were just a couple of young kids, got married, moved to Calistoga, bought a house on 10 acres that they could not afford, and kind of got into really loving and appreciating wine and sort of the capacity of what that lifestyle might be for themselves and their family. And then ever since that point, once kids showed up, they tried to make it happen multiple times, and it finally did for us in 2007, 2009, when we purchased the land that would become SJR Vineyard up here in the Rocks.
So what led them to that specific spot? I mean, that's always interesting to me. I work for Tablas, who were very focused in what they were looking for as far as a piece of property to grow specific Rhone varietals and Mourvèdre particularly, perhaps. And it's always interesting to know what leads people to buy particularly somewhere like that, which when they purchased that property, I mean, there wasn't a land rush going on up there, I don't believe.
No. No, there was definitely not. Yeah, it was, to quote Jim Barrett, we're just a bunch of kids from the sticks. We didn't know anything about the practicality of farming. My dad is originally from Burlingame, California. My mom's from Seattle. We did not grow up farmers, so this was very much a new thing for us. But as soon as we saw that piece of ground and saw the community of Milton Freewater and Walla Walla, for my parents, they immediately went, we've seen this movie before. This was Calistoga in the 70s, 80s, and arguably early 90s. So to have that level of experience of seeing a wine industry really pick up from the get-go and then coming into Walla Walla and going, aha, maybe we could kind of follow this train and see where it leads us up here. And especially with terroir being as different as it is, it was really remarkable.
Why do you feel like, I mean, you must have had this conversation. Why did they feel so strongly that was such a great piece of property? How big is the piece of property?
It's about 10 acres. It's not huge. It's now encompassing 13. We annexed a 3-acre piece just to the side. Oh yeah. No, we're high production.
Out of control up in Milton. But why? Because of the soils, or just the community? What was the driving factor, do you feel, or just all of the above, maybe?
I think a bit of all of the above. I also think that, some places just feel good. Some places just feel right. When you put your feet on that soil and you look around and you kind of go, okay, I feel good in this space. I think we can really do some great things here. And we'd been looking for quite some time, kind of all across the West Coast. We had looked at the Willamette for a period of time when we were much younger, and then stumbling upon what was to become the Rocks District. It just felt right. So
right. And did you guys have like a predetermined, when we find this piece of land, we're gonna plant Syrah, or was it just you got the land and figured out what was going to work there?
Yeah, it was a bit of that. So we really didn't know what was going to be right there. We were lucky enough to have sort of advice from a lot of great people up here, and Rhones ended up being kind of the direction for us. So we're very fortunate to have made that determination early on.
You see that question, where are you located in terms of
I do.
Rhinevan's books?
So Rhinevan's in the Rocks Vineyard is not too far from where we're located. It's on the corner of Sunnyside and I want to say Prunedale, and we're just down County Road, which is like the next street down. So it's not too far.
Is anything too far in the Rocks District?
No, it's all a stone's throw away.
Maybe a rock's throw. So what was the first thing that went in the ground?
So the Joseph Phelps clone of Syrah, everything was planted in 2007, or the main 10 acres were planted in 2007. So the Joseph Phelps clone of Syrah, which in the Northwest seems to be kind of the predominant Syrah clone for that time frame. There's just now starting to be other clones planted, but Joseph Phelps, and then we have some Viognier. We had Mourvedre. And we have the Tablas clone of Grenache. I think it's the A selection. It's what we have.
So one of the original plantings at Tablas before they had got all of our own stuff through quarantine was Phelps Syrah. We had a half an acre of that there.
Oh yeah, it's a workhorse of a clone for sure.
It struggled for us. I think I don't know where it came from, but it had a bit of virus issues and it struggled for us a little bit. But that was 1992, so it was a long time ago. I
Bit
wasn't.
further back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot further back. So you said you did have more vet, or you still do?
Well, this is a great story. So in 2013, we chip butted over a small amount of the Phelps Syrah to the 470, the Ontov 470 clone of
Mm-hmm.
Syrah. The Mourvèdre block was one of the areas that we also chip butted over.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2017, when we moved to this new training form that we developed, which we'll get into a little bit later, I, being the pruner, forgot that we had budded that block over, and that was the first block that I got into to prune. And I pruned beneath the graft union
A
on
heavy
quite a
pruning.
few plants. Yeah. So it's my bad. It ended up being a happy accident that we have started calling DELMAS miracles because there are a lot of them. And we decided to keep, to keep those plants growing, to keep the Mourvèdre back in. And our initial thought was Mourvèdre is not going to get ripe here. It's not hot enough for long enough to get it to that varietal ripeness. But in talking to some of our Rhone brethren, the message came through that, you know what, if it gets ripe, great. If it doesn't, it's acid. Just toss it into your blend and, it'll add something. So
relaxed advice.
Exactly. So I'm not really sure how many of them are in that block right now. But, maybe 5% have revived themselves. So we have fun with that.
I mean, everything I'm assuming is on own route too, right?
It is. That is.
Which is kind of the beauty of that situation, because you can cut it down, let it go again, right? I've done that on a couple of the original nursery blocks at Tablas Creek, which were planted on a quadrilateral cordon just to create budwood for the nursery business, and it just beat the old vines up. So I just cut them all down to just above the ground and retrained them, and they're back to producing grapefruit again, which is super cool. Mourvèdre has been a discussion that I actually had with Jordan Lomborg this morning, who's our viticulturalist. Mourvèdre is notoriously a hard grapevine to graft.
Yeah.
That we discovered that in our nursery, and we had something like 5,000 plants on order this year, and just got the message from the nursery that only 1,000 made it. So we got into that discussion of, maybe it's a waste of effort grafting this Mourvèdre. Maybe we should just go own root because it's happier anyway, and the blocks that we planted it that way.
Yeah.
So, and we've been doing more and more of that kind of year by year. We got a really nice Sanso block that we did last year. We just pruned and stuck sticks in the ground, and whoa, it works.
Nice. Yeah, go figure, right?
Yeah.
And you guys have Mourvèdre planted in sort of a lot of different aspects and soils, right? Or do you have them? Are they primarily in one?
It's all over the place. Yeah, I mean, it kind of gets a bit of a short end of the stick in some ways because it weathers the frost really well. So it's, the tendency is when we're planting lower areas is, let's plant Mourvèdre. But then I started to notice, well, we're just planting all the Mourvèdre in the deeper soils, and all the best soils, it's not necessarily getting to see. I mean, that's not true throughout the property, but I just found that tendency of, because it weathers the frost, we should put it down there. But so consequently, we've got a lot of stuff on the tops of the hills, where there is no soil. I mean, Tablas is all calcareous, a lot of rocks. And, the soil is pretty deep at the bottoms, but it's all clay. And we're doing, which is a good segue for you, I guess, we're doing a lot more and more dry farm, head trained or gobelet or whatever. We do a variety. We do our own version of a gobelet, which isn't a gobelet at all. It's like a miniature vertical cordon weird thing, but it works for us. It's how we do a lot of things, and I really like it. I mean, Tablas being all about sense of place, etc. Dry farming is the way to go. I mean, it's minimal intervention from us, and with all of our organic and biodynamic and now ROC
Right.
certifications, it's easier to farm that way. It's more practical for us in so many ways. So it fills many, and it doesn't really rain so much anymore. So
Yeah.
we may all be dry farming soon. You know, we're good for
Exactly.
water right now, but got to imagine that it's not going to last forever. But that leads me to what you do in the vineyard up there, and I mean, I don't know who out there knows this, but I believe it's really strange to me that I've heard just how cold it is and what you do to combat that. And cold, not like for me, my cold fear is springtime, really. For you,
Right.
it's I'm sure springtime, but also winter kill, right?
Yeah, unfortunately up here, as cool as this area is, it does get kind of knocked on both ends of the season. But to venture further down this line of discussion, how many inches of rain, Neil, would you say that on average Paso gets per year?
You can't really throw it down as Paso, because it's such a large appellation. It's not
True.
it's not the rocks. So,
That's true. Yeah.
and to put that in some perspective, where we are in the Adelaide district, we say the average is about 25
Okay.
inches. The airport, which is, I don't know, 5 miles as the crow flies, is
Yeah.
more like 10.
Okay.
So vastly different. So we get about 25,
Okay.
sometimes 40, sometimes 18, but decent rain.
Right.
But
Right.
we have no great aquifer. The east side of town has a massive aquifer. We're
Yeah.
all based on wells. We have multiple wells on the property that produce not a lot of water, but we do what we can with it. And that's another reason the dry farming became more and more important to us. And just looking around the neighborhood, there's Zinfandel that's been dry farmed and head trained for over 100 years, and it's looking great on its own roots. And it's like, well, if they can do it with Zin, we can do it with Grenache for sure.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
now we're dry farming everything almost. We haven't got it in the ground, but we will. A lot of more Ved, a lot of Grenache, a lot of Tanat, Counoise, you name it.
Yeah.
We're going.
Yeah.
And it works. It's great and it's healthy and it weathers the droughts well. So anyway,
See,
that's
that's
all right. 25 inches is the answer to your question in our
yeah, yeah.
neighborhood.
That's also our goal. We would love to be able to get to the point of dry farming where we get maybe 10 to 12 inches per year. So we're on that, high desert side of things. The least amount of irrigations thus far I have been able to get on, and it's mostly because I'm very slowly transitioning the vineyard away from that, is 4 irrigations in a season. But that was 2019 and it was not hot at all. So hopefully someday we can kind of push our vines into that methodology, because I agree with you. I think that that is kind of the way to go. The vine is going to self-regulate itself, once it kind of gets used to that environment of having to have its own roots search out, water source. So where we are also on top of the challenge of the rain, we get winter kill that can be truly terrifying. So SJR Vineyard was planted in 2007. And since that time frame, by the time we got to 2017, we had to cut the entire vineyard down to the ground 3 different times. And that's due to the winter freezes that could show up as early as October 1st.
And that's not including your pruning errors.
Yes. Yeah. So that drove the training for him, which I'll talk about in a second. But because of those insane freezes, and when I say freezes, I mean like 5 degrees or -5 degrees in the winter of 2016, 2017, which negated us to kind of take the entire vineyard into a new training farm. We hit -12 at SJR.
So, in all honesty, were you aware of this when you chose to buy that property and plant grapevines there?
That is a great question, Neil, because what they told us when we moved here was every 10 years, maybe it'll get really cold.
Yeah.
And then in a decade, 3 times. So,
Right.
yeah, the first year we were like, oh my God, what did we get into? And then the wine quality was so great that it was like, no, we got to stick this out. But having a training form on like a standard VSP in this type of environment is not ideal for Rhone varieties specifically, because they can be so delicate that the buds, they mostly dehydrate. And so that's what causes a lot of that bud death. So winter of 2016, 2017, we had 70% bud death. So we had to cut everything back to the ground again. And luckily we are own rooted. So we had the methodology of burial canes, which if you're unfamiliar, for those watching, is on an own rooted vine, you can grow out a sucker from the base throughout the entirety of the season, bury it post harvest. Then if you need to cut everything down to the ground, you pull those canes back up, can retrain them, and have fruit the next year. So that was the prevailing technology of the time. And we were very fortunate enough to have growers smarter than us that taught us how to do that. So we implemented that for the first 10 years. And then after the third freeze, we said, never again. It's extremely costly and time consuming and very, very labor intensive to your crew who has just finished harvest, right? So they've just run the marathon, and then you're asking them to get on their knees in literal rocks and bury a bunch of canes. So it wasn't practical.
This is handwork. You don't have an implement on a tractor that throws dirt over.
Well, what you're seeing right now is our new process that we call the MHT, or mini head trained. So this is the end of the process. So there's a spring photo that's all green that maybe will come up here. So those are the vines, but there's like an initial shot in that one. Okay, so this is the springtime in the Rocks District. You can see those cobblestones down the vine row. It is intensely cobbly. And these rocks go down hundreds of feet. So different than Chateauneuf, where they go down, 2 to 3 feet and then hit that clay hardpan. In the Rocks District, they're continuous all the way down to a couple hundred feet. So this is the spring during the growing season. And then there's another picture.
Where did those come from?
I'm sorry?
Where did they come from? What brought them to the land? I mean, we know the Chateauneuf came from the river and from the Alps, etc. Are you by a hill or by mountainous?
Right. So this is all an alluvial floodplain. So this is one single landform that sort of got backed up from the Missoula floods. The gorge is basically 30 miles as the crow flies from where we are. And so the Missoula floods came all the way across Montana and Washington and backed up right there. And then before everything sort of broke through there, it all settled out down in the Rocks District. And so where SJR is located is at the southwesternmost edge of that. So we're like on the shoreline of a giant river. But what you're seeing in this picture is sort of like the mid-range burial. So what we're doing now is we're using a series of discs to push the dirt and rocks up the vines to bury the heads. And I'll talk about that vine structure here. So then the winter photo of this is basically what everything looks like once we're done. So everything is mounded up, and underneath those little mounds are the trunk the head, and the first 2 to 3 buds of every single vine on property. So it's 100% protected. Where that drip line is that you're seeing, that's 24 inches. That was our old cordon height. So already we were pretty low when we were on VSP to take advantage of the extra heat coming off of those rocks. But where the vines are now are about 16, 18 inches off the ground. So it's it sure is fun to prune.
Yeah, backbreaking pruning, right?
Yeah. But having everything so low, and there's a vine structure picture here that you can see. So this is immediately following pruning. So you can see how tiny our vines are. And basically what the MHT is, the mini head trained vine, as we call it, is a gobelet vine with a trellis. That's the simplest way to describe it. It's a very small trunk, an open head with 4 to 5 spur positions around that head. So you can see that with the spring picture of this guy. So this is the exact same vine. You can see how spaced out those spurs are to really allow a lot of light and air penetration through that canopy. These are still early in the spring, so there's not a lot of canopy yet. But then when the fruit shows up on these vines, all of the fruit hangs separately. There's very little, cluster work we have to do. There's still a lot of airflow and a lot of light on these guys. So this training form has been a lot of fun for us to implement, and it's really changed the game for us in terms of the quality of fruit that's coming off the vine, and then also just to bring it back to that historical sense of place, that historical viticulture of having these someday really old, craggly, awesome vines like you guys have.
So is this kind of unique to you, or is this something that the area in general is embracing?
They're embracing it now.
So this was your idea.
This is my baby. This is my brainchild. I am not ashamed to say. It's something that we had to create out of necessity. So
have you weathered a really cold winter since?
We've had it's gotten low, but not as low as like our -12 a year. But that's not to say it won't again. I mean, I think any grower worth their salt is keenly aware that there is no normal year anymore. They just don't exist.
Right, but you feel confident with what you have seen that it's going to be able to weather most things. I mean, if it's -12, I'm imagining all bets are off.
Yeah, but if they're buried, they're fine. So all of the predominant literature and scientific papers basically say that if you cover 5 to 6 inches out, that tissue underneath should be fine. So what we're able to do with this, and we have discs now that kind of come through, and our rows are 9 foot. So we're also fortunate with that, that we have the amount of dirt to push, because pushing 18 inches is a lot of work.
Yeah.
But so far it's working. It could not at some point, at which time I'm sure that we would change it up again.
And when you remove the dirt, I mean, is that something you got to be super careful of, that you don't wait too long and little shoots are pushing and you're damaging those? I mean, timing's got to be pretty critical, I would think, in that.
It is. Yeah. The thing up here is timing is key everywhere, but especially here, because we get in season basically the same growing degrees as like Napa Valley does, but just in a much tighter window. So we're like, 3 months of heat versus like 5 months. So everything is just pushed really tight. We have bud break like a month later than Northern California. But we harvest at the exact same time. So it's super condensed.
Just looking, your yields per acre, so to speak, must be pretty low, right?
We've honed that in for the style of wine that we're making. We like to keep it for the Syrah somewhere between 2.5 to 3. For the Grenache, a little bit lower, more like 2, maybe 2.5 on the Grenache, just because as those clusters are a little bit bigger, so they need more space.
They're huge.
Yeah, but yeah, on our Syrah, we're like half-pound clusters by the time harvest rolls around. So I'm not sure if that's a factor of the clone, or if that's an own-rooted combo as well. I'm not sure, but they are heavy.
And being as how you describe that soil being deposited there amongst the rocks, I'm guessing it's quite good soil, fertile soil, I would suppose, right?
Yes. So the Rocks District, the boundaries of that AVA are predicated on one single soil series. And that soil series is literally called very cobbly loam.
Yeah.
So
Clever.
in between all of those rocky guys is a perfect loam soil. So it's incredibly high in nutrition for the grapevines. And the Rocks District is the only AVA in the United States that's boundaries are drawn on a soil series, and the second one in the world, and the other one is Gimlet Gravels in New Zealand that also grows roan varieties. So
where in New Zealand is that?
I can't remember which island it's on. I want to say it's on the South Island.
Okay. So let's just get Rocks District out of the way. When was it formed, and who was inspiring that formation? How big is it?
So the Rocks District is 3,767 acres. It is the second smallest AVA in the state of Oregon. The first is Ribbon Ridge over in the Willamette, and I believe that's 3,300 and change maybe. It again is based on one soil series, one singular landform. The guy that had this crazy idea to start the petition is a little man named Steve Robertson. And that's my dad. He worked very hard for 3 years to make this happen. His first phone call was to geologist Dr. Kevin Pogue to help him write the petition and submit it to the TTB for approval. So Kevin was an immense help with that. And it was Kevin's one caveat in terms of writing this proposal was that it had to be based on one soil series. So that was approved in February of 2015. So it is a baby in terms of AVA world.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Making a stamp. Do you make any white wine?
We do. So we make we're very teeny, but we make a varietal Viognier off of our property. So this is the label for it. This is made in a Condrieu style. So it is in new oak. We had about 12 hours of skin contact on this. We were aiming for 10, and then the press broke. So we got 12 hours of skin contact on that, and it is a fantastic wine. The Viognier off of SJR Vineyard went into Roti's Southern White blend for quite a while until we decided to make Viognier in 2018, and that was our first vintage of it. So.
Yeah, as we talked about, Roti was the one winery that I've actually visited in Walla Walla, strangely, which is cool.
Yeah,
I liked it. It was good.
John's awesome. Yeah, they make fantastic wines.
He had an out of control new puppy when I was there. It was tearing his lab to pieces.
They have a really great new tasting room down in the Rocks District as well. It's kind of sat right into the rocks. Yeah, it's got a 360 views. It's highly recommend.
So let's step away for a moment before I lose my job and taste the Tablas Creek Picpoul Blanc that you have.
Perfect.
Hopefully you have, right? So
I got a bit left, yeah.
Yeah. All the people listening know the story, I think, but Picpoul was certainly brought in by Tablas Creek through the quarantine process, and has been one of the great varieties that we were the first to bring to the country that has really been kind of a surprise to everyone and how well it's done, because its reputation in France is anything stellar really. But we found it on our climate, on our soils, to be a really, really interesting wine by itself, but a great component of our blends, particularly the Esprit, which is our top flight wine. We at Tablas are all native yeasts and native mallows. No new wood on a wine like this. It would have been in neutral pungence, 132 gallon, 500 liter, whichever way you want to go, and stainless steel. So again, the goal always being let the grapes and the wine show the place, not the heavy-handed winemaker. Give us some thoughts, Brooke. I've spoken about wine enough in my life.
Yeah. No, this is a really good one. We love Rhone whites. There's actually a little bit of a movement up here to start planting some more Picpoul and Claret and a lot of these kind of on the cusp sort of varietals, and the Tablas wine has been our North Star for that. So
it was a game changer for Paso, and I don't take credit for any of this. I didn't buy that property or anything, but prior to Tablas Creek coming to town, in reality, there was Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc and a little bit of Viognier. But it was these whites, the Grenache Blanc and the Picpoul Blanc, and continuing on, that really kind of changed the game for a lot of people. Like, oh, you can make great whites in Paso. They do hold great acidity, et cetera, et cetera. And you can make great Chardonnays and Sauvignon Blancs too. But bringing these in really changed the reputation. It's taken forever, but now there's some people locally making some beautiful white wines. Uni Blanc from Pays sur Terre is fantastic. There's just some great wines, which is Claret is becoming a thing, which is super fun to see, and we're loving the Claret, and that's made it into our Esprit wines a couple of years. Bord Blanc, we're still trying to get our heads around. This is second vintage, and it's really fun. It's just very orange in color, which is kind of odd. It doesn't have that reputation, but I think it's planted in the last piece of land we had to plant that half acre, and it's just pure white fractured rock, so it's a little harsh.
Yeah.
So we're now moving and planting it, pulling some old stuff out and planting some of these varieties in zones that may be more appropriate, because it doesn't need that heat.
Yeah. Do you find with the Picpoul, Bourbon Blanc, Claret, Grenache Blanc, those kind of style, maybe not the Grenache Blanc, but are they later ripening whites, or are they on the early side for you?
Picpoul is definitely later ripening, and Roussanne also later.
Right.
Claret's kind of in the mid range. Grenache Blanc right there with Grenache. Grenache Blanc's ridiculous. It just grows and throws fruit, and you can drop fruit, and you still have ridiculous tonnage, and it still makes a great white wine. I get depressed dropping fruit, and still there's more fruit than I thought there was. It's kind of prolific. And when people ask, what should I plant? It's kind of like, well, you go plant Grenache Blanc, at least some, because it's great and it's easy to grow, and it wants to produce, and it holds great acidity, etc.
This is lovely. This is just such a great wine.
It is. The wines have lovely texture, which I really like. But I like texture in white wines. It's super cool. I think Grenache Blanc again brings that always too. All right, there it is, Tablas Creek. You people watching, most of you know of that wine. Go buy some more of it. So let's jump into the first wine of yours. You're gonna have to explain this because I didn't do my homework. Rasa from your SJR Vineyard. Rasa's the name of the winery. And the wine
so Rasa Vineyards is so it is run by a couple of brothers, Billo and Pinto Neravane. We are very fortunate. Master of Wine, Billo Neravane, is also our consulting winemaker. And so we've been very fortunate. He's been with us from the beginning to have his mental chemistry oriented brain put to our winemaking as well. But this wine, the Vertias Sequitur Grenache, is one of the first sort of varietal Grenaches that has come off of SJR. And so there is, this is a 71% Grenache, 29% Syrah, all from SJR, 33% whole cluster on this. It's all native ferment. The Grenache was not in any new oak. It was all in neutral, but the Syrah blending component saw about 60% new oak. So, and this would have been, this is the Tablas Creek clone of Grenache and I believe the 470 clone of Syrah that went into this guy.
So you can't sell very much fruit being so small. He must be one of the only ones, but because he's a consultant, he gets that in, right?
So we, yeah, exactly. We sell a very small amount of fruit because for DELMAS, currently we're only making 3 wines. We will have our Grenache that we just made for the first time this year in its 14th leaf. So we pulled that back for ourselves, but we sell a really small amount of fruit to Force Majeure, get some Syrah, the Walls get some Syrah. And then Billow was getting the Grenache and Syrah for a little bit. But as we continue to grow, we're pulling back more of our own fruit for our wine, since there's not a whole hell of a lot of it. So we'll take that on as our production grows.
What is the production of DELMAS case production?
Currently, we are right around 600 cases.
All right.
So we've always kind of, we'll continue to grow as the demand grows. And so if those watching go to our website, delmaswines.com, you can find where you can sign up for the list. And I highly recommend that you do that.
Shameless plug.
Of course, you got to do it, man.
I know.
So if people sign up for the list, our allocation goes out once a year in February, and it sells out every year. So as we continue to get more,
explain how your allocation works.
It is first come, first serve. If you sign up, we'll send you an offer. If you buy it, you're on. If you don't, you're not. Yeah, that's kind of how we go. We have 6-pack offerings that we do, and as we produce more and more wines, so we have the Viognier now. We also have 100 bottlings only of this Magnum called the Peddler, and this will eventually be 100% Syrah only, as we do primarily a co-ferment. And then we'll also have a teeny tiny amount of our Grenache field blend that we just produced this year. So 4 wines total. That's it.
Sign up now.
Sign up now.
The line is getting long.
There you go.
Great. I love the stem character. Mm-hmm. Grenache is a struggle for me to find the style that I like. It's such a versatile grape, and you can do so many things. We had a beautiful one last night from Dumetz.
Ooh, yeah.
Sonia. Mm-hmm. Clementine something. I can't remember the name. Clementine. I'll find it before we're done. Can you grab the bottle by the mixer in there? It was really pretty.
Nice. Yeah, I love Grenache.
Beautiful. I like the spicy character that stems bring to the program.
Yeah, and that's funny with this area too. Oh yeah. Oh, I'm gonna have to seek that out.
Yeah, you should. It's really good. It's really good. All her stuff that I've had has been really pretty. I can't remember her surname, but Sonia's her name, and Casa Dumetz. Casa Dumetz is the name of her winery. I'm not sure how this relates to her, but I pulled it from her tasting room, so she must have something to do with it.
There you go. I'm gonna look that one up.
Yeah, I recommend it. So yeah, I think this is lovely. right? I mean, are you making your Grenache in this style? Are you following his lead, or?
We're doing it slightly different. So ours is more of a direct field blend, and so we kind of tossed everything together. So we destemmed the Grenache, but we kept the Syrah and the Mourvèdre as whole cluster, and fermented everything together. And it's like a micro quantity. I'm not sure we're even going to get 100 cases of it. So it's very limited. But we only have 2 acres of Grenache, so it's
Right.
nature of the beast.
I read one. You must have doubled your plantings. I read 1 acre somewhere.
Yeah, I think it's all very small. It's a small place, small amount of stuff.
No, we made 6 gallons of muscardin this year, so
nice. You get it. Yeah.
I'm pretty excited about that. The first muscardin in the country.
Well, with our Viognier too. So a couple of years ago, our 1 acre of Viognier was like 20% of all the Viognier planted in the region. So it's those other Rhone varietals are really starting to grow now.
That's fantastic. Yeah. What other wines does Bilo is his name? What other wines does he make under this label?
Bilo, yeah. So he also does, under Vertias Sequitur, there's also an SJR Syrah, which is 100% Syrah, aged. I believe it's also 100% whole cluster, aged in new oak for like 36 months, which is just fantastic. A huge juxtaposition to our sort of flagship wine, which is a co-ferment. So that's been really fun to kind of play with 2 different styles coming from the same vineyard. And then Rasa Vineyards, which is their brand, makes a bunch of different wines. They do a couple of other Rhone varieties, but they also do Cabernets and Bordeaux blends. They do their Rhone blends, which is the QED and Principia. Both of those are fantastic. Bilo went to MIT and is a musician and a math guy. So all of these sort of formulaic labels are like right in his wheelhouse. He also does a Riesling, which is fantastic. So he's all around a really fascinating winemaker. He does really great stuff. Definitely worth looking up for those of you in the queue over here.
Sounds like a pretty fascinating human in general.
Yes, yeah.
All right, well, let's jump into your baby.
Great.
2018. Well, I'm terrible with this camera. There it is. Dun, dun. Who does the artwork on your labels? I noticed the Peddler looked pretty cool, and the Viognier looked like had a bit of a similar style. Is that you, the artist?
Yeah. So my mom and I came up with the Viognier label with our master label maker, Joe Chauncey from Boxwood. The Peddler is a painting by Ira Yeager, who is a Napa Valley artist, and this painting is literally the size of me. It's it's like a 5'4", 5'5" painting that's been in my parents' house for a very long time, and we were fortunate enough to have the permission from the artist to use it, which is great. But yeah, the DELMAS label for the co-ferment it's an encaustic painting. So it's multiple layers of wax. So in person, this is like puffed up like this. On the actual print of it, but it's kind of like a Rorschach test in a way. It's got all of these different sort of colors and textures to it. So it's up to the person's interpretation of what they see in the label.
Right. Well, that's perfect.
Yeah.
So I was led by my son is on the questions here, Jordan, telling me it's Casa Dumetz and it's in Los Olivos and it's one of his favorites. And he's asking, what do you like to drink from around the world?
Ooh.
I'm not sure what SFSVOU means, but
neither do I, Neil. I had to, when I was going to Cal Poly studying for a master's in viticulture, I had to ask the 19-year-olds around me what Snapchat was. So I have no idea either.
So what do you go to when you're not drinking wines from the rocks?
You know, I am a sucker for German whites.
He's gonna like that. He's a sucker for Riesling.
Nice. Yeah. Gruner Veltliner, Gewürztraminer. I mean, on a Tuesday, fantastic. Price point being no option, though. I mean, Chateauneuf, my God, I don't think you can go wrong there. There's, you know, those varieties just are so versatile, kind of depending on where you're from. So it's those are kind of a go-to. I mean, it's you can't get cellar palate, so you got to stay away from your own supply. But I do really enjoy Syrah.
All right, so Northern Rhone would be good.
Northern Rhone, absolutely. Yeah, I was looking forward this year. Hospice de Rhone. The Rocks District was one of the keynote speakers and will be again when we do it in 2022. So, and that's always, as you're familiar with, you know, that event is so fantastic, bringing Rhone producers from all over the world together. So I was really looking forward to doing that.
The Rock District were the keynote speakers. You mean the Robertsons were the keynote speakers?
No, well, Steve is definitely on it, but also other producers from the Rocks District talking about the region and the variety of wines that can be made from there, of which co-ferment is kind of one of the mainstays of the region. So this 2018 DELMAS Syrah is co-fermented with about 8.7% Viognier. It's 8.7. We were shooting for 8, and I got a couple of the crop estimates wrong. So 8.7 it is.
No, that's pretty precise.
Oh yeah, you know, nothing if not mathematically correct. So this was brought in. We're usually early to pick in the Rocks District, and so this was in that second week of September for us, which is great, again, to be able to shut everything down before the freeze hits. This guy was, it's about 60% new oak. So when we started DELMAS, we started with 2 barrels. By nature of the beast, one was new and one was used. So from the get-go, we were kind of at 50% Syrah or 50% oak, excuse me, just to see what that did. And surprisingly, it integrates fairly quickly. So this is a really young wine, and it comes out a little bit more now, but over the aging process, it just is seamless.
So in your perspective, I hear this question asked a lot, and I'm asked it a lot, but it's always interesting to hear different people's perspective. What value do you think that 8.7% Viognier brings to your Syrah?
Lift. There's the Syrah from the rocks. So our pHs are very high. This wine alone is a little over 4, but it helps add to that silky smooth palate that you get off of the wines from this region. And with the addition of the co-ferment of Viognier, you're really getting a little bit of that acid, a little bit of that floral lift in it, where it just kind of it's not as heavy on your palate, and it brings a lot of that lift to it. So there's more of a sort of jasmine floral character that kind of comes out with that. It's not super strong, but it really enhances it.
Do you feel like you have to be pretty careful with doing whole cluster stuff with such high pHs anyway?
Yeah, so it definitely depends on the vintage. So this year it was in 2018, I believe it was 40%. We kind of range between, depending on the year, like 30 to maybe 60% whole cluster with the stem inclusion. Just depends on how ripe things get. With the Syrah from all of Walla Walla, the stems stay fairly green. It's really weird because normally you're looking at that going, there's no way I'm gonna include those stems. But when you chew on them, they're ready, they're ripe. They don't have that, high pyrazine green thing going on. So it'll depend on the year, but we're not afraid of the high pH. We will add acid should it need it, but we won't add it to the level to knock it back down to like a 3.6 pH, because that would just completely change the whole nature of the wine. So we let it be.
Not afraid of -12, not afraid of high pH, becoming fearless in the rocks.
We're daredevils out here, Neil. We're tossing the dice every day.
So what's your oak preference? Are you prepared to divulge that secret?
For Coopers?
Yeah.
We were fortunate enough to stumble upon a Cooper called Tremo. And those barrels for us have been absolutely phenomenal. We do a range of like the big boy barrels and like the Tremo and a Quintessence, and then we also have Sarug and Terenceau and sort of those, little bit lighter toast on those guys as well. So we don't go full bore on the new oak, but we've been moving to puncheons lately as our production has allowed us to do that, and that has been a revelation. I love the puncheons.
I do. I like the large format puncheons. The demi-muid are fun too. We do a lot of those. They're a pain, but you just have to hire younger people to move them. Is what I've discovered.
There you go. Yeah, our goal is to get to the production level where we can get some, foudras or something. Yeah. We're just not there yet. So
yeah, that's a great moment when that happens. I mean, obviously, I live with that at Tablas Creek, and we got lots of them, and it's fantastic. But
yeah,
we were able to buy 2 660-gallon oval foudras for my family's business a while ago, and it's such an exciting moment to fill one of those things with your blend.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a big moment for us.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, hopefully.
I'd like to ask you, and I know this is a difficult question because people ask me the same one. Other producers from the rocks or producers producing wine from the vineyards of the rocks appellation that you would suggest people seek out to get an impression of that special place?
Well, I think that, the first name that should be mentioned is definitely Christophe Baron with Cayuse. The wines that he produces are absolutely phenomenal. He's been kind of a mainstay through Hospice, representing this area specifically for a bit now, and that's been fantastic. What he does is truly unique. The newcomers on the scene, us and Force Majeure is really doing some amazing things. They're stumbling down into the rocks now. Their winery is there. They also have a vineyard on Red Mountain that they do some fantastic things from. But Todd Alexander, also from Napa Valley, is a great winemaker, and his 2016 SJR 100% Syrah scored 100 points from Jeb Donick. That was a fantastic wine. We feel very fortunate to have been a part of that. Roti.
Does he still buy Syrah from you?
He does, yeah. So we will continue to supply him since he's doing so well with it.
Right. Well, it doesn't hurt, does it?
Yeah, it doesn't hurt, definitely. but roti, like we were talking about before, you know, Sean has a special touch with Rhones and specifically from the Rocks District. He has a handful of acres down there as well that are under his direct control, and that really makes all the difference. Is when it's your vineyard, when you're in control of what happens there on a daily basis. You can really hone in, you know, what style of wine you're going to make. I mean, for us, all of the work goes in on the vineyard first. You know, that's where all of the time is spent. And if I've done my job there, then the wine making process, this is easy, you know. So if you're in control of your own space, it really goes a long way.
Absolutely. And I mean, it sounds tough farming up there. I mean, farming's tough everywhere. Obviously, we all have our own challenges.
Right.
Burying grapevines just sounds crazy to me.
It's better now that you know, we don't have to have as much of the human element,
Right.
which is great. So implements are your friend. I see it.
Frank. That's Frank. Hey, Frank. Frank's a good friend of mine and of Tablas Creek. So
Right.
what do you have to say to that question?
So as far as I'm aware, so I'm sure there are other people that are using some version of the MHT. It has to be. I can't be the only person that has thought of this so
No,
far.
you can be the only person that thought of that.
But I might be. I haven't seen anything that is done the exact way that we're doing it. I read a paper just recently that was talking about a different training method in China where they're doing something similar, but they're doing sort of a cordon on the ground and then burying the entirety of that. So similar, but very different, right? So whereas we're the full gobelet, you know, we're the mono.
There are certainly areas of the world in this country that practice burying the grapevines because it's so cold. I mean, that's
right.
That's not.
It's not new. Yeah, it's definitely not new.
Strange wherever you are, but it's people do it. But people do anything to grow grapevines. You know, they'll do whatever it takes to make wine, which is great for all of us because you know great bottles of wine come out of really, really challenging situations.
Absolutely. I know that the Okanagan does a lot of different burial type of methods. I know that a lot of the hybrids being grown in the Midwest, you know, a lot of them are on that fan training form where I think they push that over and lay that down. Some places in Washington too have utilized that method. So there's different ways, but specifically the MHT, the mini head trained, I haven't seen it.
I think you should just go with calling it the Robertson MHT.
little smart Dyson action there. Yeah.
Just throw your name in there.
No, it's free knowledge for everybody to use.
Yeah, but the creator should always have credit.
Good point.
All right, I'm gonna let you get back to Friday night. This has been really great, and I'm looking forward to coming back up there to the districts now. I know a little more about it. We were just passing through when I was last there, and it'd be fun to do a more concerted effort.
Yeah, we'd love to have you up and show you what we're doing at SJR. There's new stuff all the time. We just planted the Beaucastel clone of Cinsault as well. So
oh, really?
Thank you guys for
really
bringing that in.
I've had 2 vintages of it now, and it's really, really good.
Nice. Yeah, we're excited about that. I brought that up to Inland Desert, the nursery up in Washington from FPS. They had not had it before. So
no, I'm super excited about that. It's really a cool clone. I make Cinsault a little bit for the family winery, and I've already grafted some stuff over with it to prove that I have to purchase, but it's such a strong clone.
Yeah, we're excited to see what that does.
Cheers to you and everybody up there in the rocks.
Cheers, Neil.
Cheers. Thank you very much for doing this on a Friday night.